All right, and we are going again. Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Barden. Today, I'm going to be talking about the idea of a major scale and what kind of make. This is going to be a relatively short video because, at its core, it's not that complicated. And I'm going to give you all a link to another video that I think additionally will help answer some more questions that you. So let's just jump right into it. And let's talk about a major scale. So you've probably heard about a piece of music being in some kind of key. Oh, this is in G or B, C minor, or some whatever. I don't know what you've heard um, specifically, but basically the key of a song kind of comes from the scales that are used in it. Um, this can also be a little generally speaking. Um, so you're going to be focusing on what makes up scales in general, and then specifically the major scale. And this is again speaking incredibly broadly, but scale is probably the one you'll most commonly come across when looking at music. Um, Again, big grain of salt, big probably right there. Um, but at the very least, it's very important and a very useful scale. Um, So before we get into that, let's talk about the idea of half steps and whole steps, also called a tone or a semitone. Just so if you go to different sources, you hear the same thing. A tone is a whole step. A semitone is a half step. I'm going to use whole step and half step. Uh, Other people might not, just so you know. Um, I think these are the most clearly recognized on a keyboard. So in my last video, if you're kind of watching all of these together, I went through and mentioned about how different frequencies were attached to different notes on, and I had a whole diagram for that in the slides I put up. Um, that's great, that's fine, but in any kind of practical sense ever, that would be horrible to use in any kind of performance kind of notation. Um, I mean, you would just be listing out numbers and things, and someone trying to play the piano, it would not work out well. That being said, there are ways you can use it and use it well, but in most performance practices, that's not going to work. Um, but anyways, let's bring my mouse back and look at this picture I have right here. So basically, we can arrange all of the notes on. I mentioned that um, again, we kind of repeat the octaves here that doubles the frequency. Each note is given a name. In this name, in common Western general practice music, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. See, it's how we arrange it. This is how it is laid out on the computer. A whole step or tone, I'm going to, again, keep with whole step for this, of two keys on the computer. So if we start at the C, a whole step up would be D because we go C, C sharp, D. Do, do, do. We jump over one to the next. A half step, distance of one key. So from C to C sharp would be a half step. So C to C sharp, C, C sharp, D. Um, we kind of get that distance. Whole step is twice the musical distance of a half step. So in this course, we're going to learn a bunch of different scales. And again, we're starting with a major scale today, but one thing that all have in common is that they're just a different arrangement of half steps and whole steps. It's a pattern. And you can stick that pattern on any note here and play it, and you'll have played in that key on that note. Um, right. So that pattern here is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step. Um, and I've got that written out right here: whole, half, whole, half, or 2 2 1, or 2 1 3 1 is another way I sometimes look at it if you're better with numbers. Um, all right, and again, scale, the key it's referring to depends on the note that it starts and ends on, but at least that it starts on. That's called the tonic. scale degree. It's scale degree 1. Um, and real quick, we're just gonna make major scale right here. So if we start on the note D right there, and we move up a whole step, E, that's right there. A whole step is 2 keys, F sharp. Right? Then we move a half step, 1 key to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, whole step to C, half step to end back on the D again. So a scale is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and we end back on the D that we started on. So we have that there. You'll notice that again, no black keys in between the notes E and F and B and C. I wasn't there when they made the design, but it does help with easily figuring out where you are octave. All right, so again, we always get this group of 2 black notes, this group of 3 black notes, and that repeats for every octave, so you can very easily figure out where you are based on this pattern of keys. But again, this whole step being the distance of 2, and a half step being a distance of 1, that's always going to be true. So again, C, D, E, up a whole step would be F, E, up a half step would be F. So we've got that going right there. So this video I've got, I'm not going to play it right now because copyrights and things like that, and that would just be kind of video where I just play someone else's video. But again, you can find this in the slides, and this again has a lot of condensed information about major scales and goes through making a bunch of them, and it's overall really well done. So I'm just gonna right there to check out. No, I don't want to play it. There we go. As you're notating this, I mentioned the idea of F sharp and C sharp. That's how we kind of refer to off of their natural position or the white key position on the keyboard. So if something is C sharp, you start on the C and move it up one semitone. Sharp. Um, the natural is the white key. Let's say B flat, you would go to the B and go down 1 to make B flat. A double sharp and double flat is the same thing, except it's a whole, not a half step. So you'll see that sometimes in music. These things, just as you're reading music and you see these symbols in the music, know that they only apply to that specific measure. They always appear before the note, and they only apply to that particular octave. So if you had, D sharp and D, an octave lower, you would assume that lower D is D natural. Unless there was a sharp in front of it. And if you see these symbols in the key signature, which I'll talk about in the next video, you don't have to put an accidental in there. The performer or you should assume that, if there's an F sharp in the key signature, F's in this piece of music are going to be sharp. All right. So that's the last slide I have here. I'm just going to go back here just again to illustrate this, because this symbol. So again, we have C, we go up to C sharp. That's, moving up 1 step. We have B, we go down 1, B flat right there. And we'll see it written out like that. All of these black keys have 2 names. This is what's called inharmonic equivalence. And basically, you can just refer to this same pitch, this same frequency by 2 different names, depending on the context of what's happening. So, D sharp sounds the same as E flat, but if depending on the scale you're using or the chord you're spelling, you may want it to be different, different contexts. I'm not going to get into that too much right now, just because that's probably a whole separate video we could get onto. But just know that there's D sharp, E flat. There's different ways to refer to it, and that's true for all of the black keys on the piano keyboard. All right, so that's going to be it for now. Again, if you're watching this, check out that video I have I think you'll find it helpful, and again, kind of exploring a lot of what I said, but with a little bit more practice to it for someone who's better at video graphics editing than I am. So again,